Hello everyone and welcome to Tariq and welcome to our special segment Tariq classes for class 12th history. And the chapter for today is Mahatma Gandhi and the nationalist movement, civil disobedience and beyond. Whenever we look at the history, especially of the history of nationalism जो हम वर्ल्ड में देखते हैं, वहाँ कोई ना कोई एक हीरो ज़रूर इमर्ज करता है. चाहे अगर हम इटली की बात करें तो गरिबाल्डी थे और जॉर्ज वॉशिंगटन इन द यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स जब अमेरिकन वॉर ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस हो रहा था. Similarly, in India also we had our national hero called Mahatma Gandhi of Bapu, and he became the father of the nation because he was the most influential and revered leaders that the subcontinent had seen. And जो उनका टाइम पीरियड जो बहुत क्रूशल था वो था 1917 से लेकर 1948 तक, and how he dealt with the British and the other sections of the society that were struggling to get rid of the foreign rule.
The first topic is a leader announces himself. In 1915 is when a person by the name of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi decides to come back to India after nearly 2 decades outside, and most of this time was spent in Africa where he worked as a lawyer. Africa में ही गांधी जी की एक leadership quality emerge करके आ रही थी, where he was leading the local Indian population against the injustices of the colonial rule. Chandran Devanesan is a historian who has gone as far as saying that it was in Africa that was the making of the Mahatma, because that is where he developed his distinctive techniques of satyagraha and non-cooperation. In the initial stages of development, satyagraha, it was a form of non-violent protests which was the hallmark of the Gandhian movement, and satyagraha primarily or in the beginning was focused towards harmony between different religions and also educating or telling the upper castes of their responsibility and their mistreatment towards the lower castes and also women. Now, the India that Gandhiji returned to in 1915 was very different from the one that he left in 1893. Now, अभी भी कॉलोनी थी इंडिया ब्रिटिश के अंडर, but it was far more aware in the political sense. Many movements had also happened that had this, at least among the upper and the middle classes, there was this need for the self-declaration of independence, the need to not be a colony anymore. The Indian National Congress had emerged as a political party, and they had made massive sways throughout the subcontinent, and the Swadeshi movement had also picked up a lot of steam, especially towards the middle classes between 1905 to 1907. The Swadeshi movement had given rise to a lot of local leaders, and they had an almost like a pan-Indian characteristic to themselves. They were Bal Gangadhar Tilak from Maharashtra, Bipin Chandra Pal from Bengal, and Lala Lajpat Rai from the Punjab. And together they were known as Lal Bal Pal, which was like an acronym that was given to the three of them because they were very famous for their work, and because their distance, where they were located were pretty far from each other. पंजाब, महाराष्ट्र और बंगाल में काफ़ी डिस्टेंस होता है, एंड विद इन these distances they covered a lot of ground and they gained a lot of popularity. However, their mode of the Swadeshi movement was a little more extreme, and to counter this there were also a group of moderates who believed that you don't have to be so extreme or so militant towards the British rule in order to get independence. You can do it via the peaceful means as well. The moderates believed that they could, through persuasion, gain independence from the British. And among the moderates, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, who was also the mentor of Mahatma Gandhi, he was a primary figure. Another figure was Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who, like Gandhiji, was also he was from Gujarat. He was a lawyer from Gujarat, but he was educated in London. In fact, it was on Gokhale's insistence that Mahatma Gandhi travel the entirety of British India to gain an idea of the essence of the people of the country, to get an idea of the emotions of the people, for a better understanding of the people that in future he would lead. His first public appearance where he spoke was in February 1916, where it was during the opening of, or the inauguration of, the BHU, Banaras Hindu University, which was a big deal because this was the first university that was meant specifically for the Indian public, but it was also made by the Indian public. Now, at the opening ceremony of the BHU, there were many other prominent leaders like Annie Besant and other people who had done a lot of work in the Indian scene. Mahatma Gandhi, in comparison to that, had not really done much in India. I mean, he'd only come back a year ago, and his fame was mostly through his work in Africa, and that is why he was invited to this event. Now, when he was asked to speak during this occasion, instead of taking a more, instead of like giving out congratulations कि इतना बड़ा feat achieve कर लिया है Indians ने, he promptly attacked the crowd, because these were mostly the elite, the Indian elites. Most of them were activists and philanthropists, and they belonged to the middle classes or the upper classes, middle upper classes. So Gandhiji was very critical of the audience of the opening ceremony, how it was only catering to a few rich, affluent people, whereas the majority of the masses, of the poor people who did not have the resources, did not find representation anywhere in any of the freedom struggles. He was very critical of the rich Brahmins particularly, but then the upper class and the rich people in general, because he felt that a movement that did not include the masses would not lead India to any form of victory. There is no salvation for India unless you strip yourselves of this jewelry and hold it in trust for your countrymen in India. There can be no spirit of self-government about us if we take away or allow others to take away from the peasants almost the whole of the results of their labor. Our salvation can only come through the farmer. Neither the lawyers, nor the doctors, nor the rich landlords are going to secure it. So Gandhiji's speech at BHU was two things. First of all, it was a statement of fact. He didn't say anything that wasn't true, but at the same time, it was also a statement of intent. It showed where he placed himself in the national struggle, where he wanted to proceed, how he wanted to proceed, the direction that he wanted to go in, and the direction that he wanted to lead in. It showcased his own desire to lead the people of India as a whole, not as just a pocket of rich affluent people or a pocket of a religious class or a working class here, but as people coming together, throwing in their resources together, becoming one people, one nation, and then bringing about a change. For this, the opportunity was presented to him in the same year, in December, when the Indian National Congress was held in Lucknow, 1916 May. A farmer from Champaran approached him and spoke to him about their own plight, about how the British were treating the indigo planters.
The next topic is making and the unmaking of non-cooperation. So 1917 में much of his time, Mahatma Gandhi's time was spent in Champaran, where he was trying to help the peasants in Champaran कि they should have the choice of the crops they want to grow, and also they wanted security for the tenure. फिर 1918 के वक्त इन ओन होम स्टेट अहमदाबाद में दो कैंपेन्स उन्होंने उसमें इंटरवीन किया था. एक अहमदाबाद में था जहाँ पे ही हैड इंटरवीन इन लेबर डिस्प्यूट एंड ही वांटेड अ बेटर वर्किंग कंडीशन फॉर द टेक्सटाइल वर्कर्स देयर, एंड द अदर वन वाज इन खेड़ा डिस्ट्रिक्ट जहाँ पे ही वांटेड द रेमिशन ऑफ द टैक्सेस सो दैट बिकॉज द हार्वेस्ट हैड फेल्ड इन द खेड़ा डिस्ट्रिक्ट. बट दीज एंड व्हेन यू लुक एट दीज थ्री कैंपेन्स, इससे जो महात्मा गांधी का जो रोल था स्पेशली इस सब कॉन्टिनेंट में वो और भी इम्पॉर्टेंट होता जा रहा था, स्पेशली नेशनलिज्म के उसमें. बट ये लोकल लेवल पे था 1919 में एक उनको एक मौका मिला जहाँ वो नेशनल लेवल पे वाइड स्प्रेड नेशनलिस्ट मूवमेंट का एक हिस्सा बनने वाले थे. ड्यूरिंग द ग्रेट वॉर, जो फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर थी 1914 से 18 के बीच में, उस टाइम पे रॉलेट एक्ट इम्पोज किया गया था बाय सर रॉलेट. 1914 से लेके 1918 तक सेंसरशिप ऑफ प्रेस हो गई थी एंड डिटेंशन विदाउट ट्रायल इम्पोज कर दिया गया था बाय द ब्रिटिश, एंड दिस वाज डन ऑन द कमांड ऑफ सर सिडनी राउलेट. तो गांधी जी ने पूरे नेशन को बोला कि वी शुड गो अगेंस्ट इट एंड गो अगेंस्ट दिस रॉलेट एक्ट. एंड in the northern and the western part of the country, the schools were shut, shops were shut, people were called for this band, called against this band. हर जगह लोग ब्रिटिश के अगेंस्ट नारेबाजी कर रहे थे. और स्पेशली जो इसका जो प्रोमिनेंस था वो पंजाब में बहुत था, एंड बिकॉज अ लॉट ऑफ द सोल्जर्स वर फ्रॉम द पंजाब रीजन जो वॉर में गए थे, एंड जो उन्होंने वहाँ सैक्रिफाइसेस की या जो उन्होंने वहाँ पे अपनी जो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी दिखाई जो भी थी, उसके परिणाम में दे गेटिंग दिस रिएक्शन फ्रॉम द ब्रिटिश, इट वाज अनकॉल्ड फॉर. एंड Gandhi ji also, he proceeded towards Punjab, but he was stopped, he was detained, and other prominent congressmen were also put in jail. And this all culminated in the Ghori Act that took place in 1919 called Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar, where people had just gathered around. It was a peaceful protest, peaceful discussions taking place. It was on the day of Baisakhi, 13th of April, and us din Brigadier General Dyer, he came and he just closed the only exit entry point and he shot people there, irrespective कि कौन है, बच्चे हैं, बूढ़े हैं, जवान हैं, औरतें हैं, and thousands में लोग मरे थे उस टाइम पे. And this was something that जिसकी निंदा पूरे not only in the subcontinent but even around the world where the press was there, they had done it. This made Gandhiji a national leader, and then after that he called for non-cooperation. He asked the people that if you want the British to go away and to leave your country, you will have to non-cooperate with them. Stop going to schools, stop going to colleges, stop paying taxes, lawyers should stop going to the courts, and complete non-cooperation, जो मतलब actually होता है towards the British. And गांधी जी मेरे शो कि अगर हम नॉन कोऑपरेशन करेंगे तो हम स्वराज ज़रूर पा जाएंगे. एंड ही ट्राई टू क्लब नॉन कोऑपरेशन विद another movement that was taking place called Khilafat movement, where they wanted to restore the caliphate that was a symbol of pan-Islamism, and that was abolished by the Turkish ruler Kemal Atatürk. The Khilafat movement was a movement of Indian Muslims led by Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali. They demanded that the Turkish Sultan must retain control over the Muslim sacred places in the erstwhile Ottoman Empire that constituted of Arabia, Syria, Iraq and Palestine. They must remain under Muslim sovereignty, and the Khalifa must be left with sufficient territory to enable him to defend the Islamic faith. Congress supported the movement and Mahatma Gandhi sought to conjoin it to non-cooperation movement. Gandhiji hoped that coupling non-cooperation with Khilafat movement would bring two major religious sections of the society together and to end the British rule. So their children stopped going to schools, students stopped going to colleges, lawyers stopped going to the courts. In total, 1921, there were almost like 396 strikes involving 6 lakh workers and 7 million working days. So इतना नुकसान हुआ होगा उस वक्त ब्रिटिश एम्पायर को कि 396 strikes हैं आपकी, and then you do have and total non-cooperation is happening. Nobody is going to college, nobody is going to work, nobody is paying the taxes, and you have loss of working hours because the British had this because when the industrial revolution also took place, so they had these working hours कि इतने hours तो आपको काम करना ही पड़ेगा, उसके हिसाब से ही आपको wages मिलेंगे. तो वो बहुत loss था ब्रिटिश एम्पायर के लिए. इतना ही नहीं, कंट्री साइड में डिसकंटेंट देखा गया था. नदर्न आंध्र रीजन में फॉरेस्ट जो लॉज थे वो द ट्राइब्स दे वेंट अगेंस्ट दैट. कुमाऊं रीजन में दे स्टॉप्ड कैरिंग लोड्स ऑफ द ब्रिटिश फॉर द ब्रिटिश. अवध में पेजेंट्स स्टॉप पेइंग द टैक्सेस, एंड इन सबका वे ऑफ डिफाइंस वाज वेरी डिफरेंट. जो उनके हिसाब से नॉन कोऑपरेशन का मतलब था उन्होंने वही रूल फॉलो किया. इट इज़ ना कि जो रूल्स द कांग्रेसमैन और महात्मा गांधी हैड फॉर्मुलेटेड, दे जो उनके हिसाब से नॉन कोऑपरेशन थी वो उन्होंने उसी को दैट इज थ्रू दैट दे डिफाइड द ब्रिटिश. नॉन कोऑपरेशन, wrote Mahatma Gandhi's American biographer Louis Fisher, became the name of an epoch in the life of India and of Gandhi ji. Non-cooperation was negative enough to be peaceful, but positive enough to be effective. It entailed denial, renunciation and self-discipline. It was training for self-rule. जो ब्रिटिश राज था, it was shaken to its core. After the revolt of 1857, this was the time where they felt its effect. But in February 1922, a group of peasants, they torched the police station at Chauri Chaura and many constables perished. Because Gandhiji, as we know, followed non-violence, and because because due to this action it had become very violent and people died. So Gandhiji had to call off non-cooperation movement. Gandhiji insisted no provocation and can possibly justify the brutal murder of men who had been rendered defenseless and who had virtually thrown themselves on the mercy of the mob. Thousands of Indians were arrested during the movement. Even Gandhiji was arrested in 1922 and he was put a charge of sedition. And after the British left, now we hear the term sedition very often, but that was the only time we would hear it. And the justice C.N. Broomfield, he presided over the trial of Gandhiji, and this is what he states. It would be impossible to ignore the fact that you are in a different category from any person I have ever tried or am likely to try. It would be impossible to ignore the fact that in the eyes of millions of your countrymen, you are a great patriot and a leader. Even those who differ from you in politics look up upon you as a man of high ideals and of even saintly life. And because Gandhiji had violated the law, so he was sentenced for 6 years, but Broomfield was quite impressed by Gandhiji. And Broomfield remarks that if the government, by chance, due to any special circumstance that arises, and they release you sooner, he would be really happy, that would, because he was really impressed by Gandhiji. By 1922, Gandhiji had transformed Indian nationalism. जो उन्होंने BHU में स्पीच दी थी वो उन्होंने रिडीम किए हैं. अब ये जो nationalism था, it was just not about the intellectuals or people belonging to a certain class or be lawyers or doctors. It was a mass movement. People from all walks of life, whether they were peasants, they were workers, they were artisans, they had also joined in this fight against the British Empire. A lot of these people belonging to the masses, they all revered him, and they gave him a title of Mahatma because they always felt that Mahatma Gandhi wanted to connect with them, so he ate like them, he wore his clothes like them, unlike other intellectuals who always wanted to have this distinction, ki we belong to a certain class, you belong to a certain class. But whereas Mahatma Gandhi was more like, they associated themselves with him. They felt that he understood where they come from, how they live, how they do their things, and what they think. The whole thought process, they knew that he understands that. And जो identification था वो बहुत striking था, because mostly all these nationalists would wear band galas or western clothes. Gandhiji would wear a loincloth, and he would spin his charkha. And would ask other people also to do so. In a way, he would spin the charkha to break away from all the traditional caste system between mental labor and manual labor. And a historian by the name of Shahid Amin, he also states that people really loved him, especially in the eastern Uttar Pradesh. When Gandhiji went there in 1921, he was received by a huge crowd. And this is what the Hindi newspaper in Gorakhpur wrote about his arrival. At Bhatni, Gandhiji addressed the local public, and then the train started for Gorakhpur. There were not less than 15,000 to 20,000 people at Nunkhar, Deoria, Gauri Bazar, Chauri Chaura and Kusmi stations. Mahatma Gandhi was very pleased to witness the scene as Kusmi, as despite the fact that the station is in the middle of a jungle, there were not less than 10,000 people here. Some, overcome with their love, were seen to be crying. At Deoria, people wanted to give bhaint, donations to Gandhiji, but he asked them to give these at Gorakhpur. But at Chauri Chaura, one Marwari gentleman managed to hand over something to him. Then there was no stopping. A sheet was spread and currency notes and coins started raining. It was a sight. Outside the Gorakhpur station, the Mahatma was stood on a high carriage, and people had a good darshan of him for a couple of minutes. But वही होता है कि when you start revering a person, you start associating him with miraculous powers. So this is what happened. Rumors spread that Gandhiji has arrived. He has miraculous powers within him. He does miracles. People are scared of him. The British Empire is scared of him. He's even superior to the British monarchy. And now the British they will flee from the country, and those who will oppose him will have to see dire consequences. So a lot of superstitions around him that was made up by the people. It spread across village to village. Gandhiji came to be known as Gandhi Baba, Gandhi Maharaj, and people thought that he had come to rescue them. He is their savior. He would save them from all the high taxes, and he would restore peace and harmony, and he would do away with the oppressive authority, and he would restore dignity in their lives. And because Gandhiji started to dress like them in his simple dhoti, and charkha also came to be associated with him, though by his caste he was a merchant and by profession he was a lawyer, but he would do by spinning of the charkha, he tried to associate himself with that of the labor, and they also started to associate themselves with him. Where other nationalists sometimes talked down to these people, he was the one who kind of associated him with them, and he understood what they wanted and what they're going through. Mahatma Gandhi's mass appeal was undoubtedly genuine. He had established Praj Mandals in the subcontinent, and had also asked for the broadening of nationalism by organizing it in a very meticulous way. So committees बिठाई गई थी कांग्रेस की हर जगह, and he asked the nationalist leaders to spread the idea of nationalism in the mother tongue and not English, because वो फिर आप कनेक्ट नहीं कर पाओगे जनता से. एंड जो लोकल लैंग्वेज में होगी या जो भी आप it will be easier for you to spread the idea of nationalism and जो freedom है, और वो इंग्लिश में नहीं हो पाती. सो प्रोविंशियल कमिटीज़ बिठाई गई लिंग्विस्टिक on the basis of linguistic point of view से, and not what the British wanted. And that is why in the far corners of the subcontinent the idea of nationalism started to spread, and especially in those regions जहाँ पे उनको बिल्कुल भी लोगों को आइडिया ही नहीं था. कांग्रेस के सपोर्टर्स काफ़ी इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट और बिजनेसमैन भी थे, एंटरप्रेन्योर्स भी थे, स्पेशली G.D. Birla, because they also wanted to get rid of the competitors, and they wanted to get rid of the British, because at times the British would favor certain group of industrialists that would be good to them, and would not oppose them, whereas some of the industrialists were coming up for the people, and that is why they had joined Congress. So Gandhiji did not only have people from the village community or peasants or laborers or artisans, he also had had businessmen, इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट एज हिज फॉलोअर्स. महात्मा गांधी का अपना रोल तो इम्पॉर्टेंट था ही, बट एक चीज़ जो बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है कि द काइंड ऑफ पीपल दैट स्टार्टेड टू सपोर्ट हिम, स्पेशली बिटवीन 1917 and 22. सो गांधी जी वॉज फॉलोड by Mahadev Desai, Vallabhbhai Patel, J.B. Kripalani, Subhash Chandra Bose, Abul Kalam Azad, Jawaharlal Nehru, Sarojini Naidu, Govind Ballabh Pant, and C. Rajagopalachari. And all of these people, they came from different regions and religions. So they joining Mahatma Gandhi and following him made other people also join Congress and work for it. When Mahatma Gandhi was released from jail in 1924, he wanted to spend a lot of time in making hand-spun cloth called khadi, which is very famous today, and abolition of untouchability. He was just not a politician; he was a social reformer as well. Gandhiji always emphasized that in order to get freedom, which was a freedom from the British, you need to get freed from social evils as well, like untouchability is there, child marriage is there, and जब आपको ये फ्रीडम मिलेगी तभी आपको जो फ्रीडम आप चाहते हैं आपको वो मिलेगी, और साथ में इकोनॉमिक सेल्फ रिलायंस शुड बी देयर. इकोनॉमिकली ऑल्सो वी हैव टू बी सेल्फ रिलायंट. दैट इज़ हाउ वी कैन फाइट देम. and that is why he promoted the idea of wearing khadi rather than the mill-made cloth that was imported to India. And he also wanted people to have like people of one faith to have tolerance for people of another faith. So he promoted the idea of Hindu-Muslim unity.
The next topic is the Salt Satyagraha, a case study. Now, after being released from prison for a number of years that followed, Gandhiji chose to focus on the social reforms. वो freedom movement में इतना participate नहीं कर रहे थे because he felt that till the time the society was divided amongst itself, freedom would not really benefit anybody. But in 1928 is when he decided that now he can enter politics again. This was the year when an all-white Simon Commission was being sent from England to come and look at the conditions of the colony, and then there were massive protests against it. Although he did not formally participate in it, he gave the protest his blessing. Similarly, he also gave his blessing to a peasant satyagraha which was happening in Bardoli in the same year. December 1929 में there was a shift in the political scene or in the freedom movement itself. In the annual session of the Congress which was held in Lahore in 1929, there was a change in leadership. This is when Jawaharlal Nehru became the president, and this signified a fresh wave of reform movements and also the passing of the baton. So it was like the younger people are now coming forward. It's time for the older folk to lead from the back, and then now the young folk would then lead from the front with their ideas, their new ideas about what to do. The second was now the proclamation of Purna Swaraj or complete independence. So if earlier the Indian side was satisfied by getting a say in the governance or getting a few premier posts in the government, now that was no longer satisfactory. They wanted a complete hold of the reins to run their own democracy, to run their own country. 26th January 1913 में Independence Day was observed. Now we observe this day as a Republic Day. On this day, Gandhiji gave out instructions that celebrations, it would be good if celebrations were held by whole villages and whole towns, and if these could happen at the same time. During this day, the national flag was unfurled at many venues, and this was accompanied by singing songs, Desh Bhakti ke gaane and other celebrations. Gandhiji suggested that the time of this event or these events be announced in the traditional way, so by the beating of the drums. So the ceremony would start by unfurling the national flag, and then he wanted the rest of the day to be spent doing constructive work. So his suggestion was for the upper caste Hindus to spend their day in serving the untouchables, or for Hindus and Muslims to come together in brotherhood to do prohibition work, or just spinning the wheel. Because for him, spinning the wheel, as much as it was a form of doing something that was maybe meant for the lower classes, but it was also something that was spinning the wheel was like a meditation of sorts. So for people to come together and celebrate togetherness is what he wanted. Participants would take a pledge affirming in the inalienable right of the Indian people as of any other people to have freedom and to enjoy the fruits of their toil, and that if any government deprives the people of these rights and oppresses them, the people have a further right to alter it or abolish it. Soon after the observance of Independence Day, Gandhiji decided that now he would lead a march or a protest march onto Dandi, where he would break the salt laws. Now the salt laws was one of the heavily disliked laws in British India. This gave the state the monopoly for the manufacture and sale of salt. Now this also shows the tactical wisdom of Gandhiji, because salt was and it continues to be an indispensable element in our households. In any household, you need salt for cooking, you need sodium to enrich your body. So it's not like अगर आपने नमक नहीं खाया तो कोई बात नहीं, काम चल जाएगा. But what was happening with the salt laws was that the British were एक तो they had monopolized manufacturing of the salt. Then what they manufactured they sold to the Indian public at a very high cost. So almost at 1,000% interest rate पे उसी salt को वो बेचते थे. And the freely available salt was then destroyed. So even people, if they could not afford if they could not afford market bought salt, they could not go and procure salt or create it on their own. The state monopoly over the salt was it was something that created a lot of trouble for a lot of people, and in voicing his discontent over it and also actually marching against it, Gandhiji hoped that this would bring a new wave of people into the nationalist movement. Most Indians understood the significance of the Salt March that was being undertaken by Gandhiji, but the British were not. They were very laid back, or they did not really think that Gandhiji marching towards Dandi would create any impact the way that it did. Now, Gandhiji had given prior notice of his salt march to the Viceroy, Lord Irwin. On 12th March 1930, he set out from his ashram, which was at Sabarmati, and he walked to Dandi, which took about 3 weeks. When he reached there, he grabbed a fistful of the salt from the shores, effectively making him a criminal in the eyes of the British. Now, alongside Dandi, parallel salt marches were being carried out in other parts of the nation. But Dandi March was not the only form of protest. We already spoke about how non-cooperation movement took its own life in different in inland villages where the nationalist leaders were not they were not there in their full presence. So वहाँ पे उसका एक अपना ही character निकल आया था. For instance, in some cases, peasants who were already very unhappy with the British law that prevented them and their cattle from going into the woods, they broke that law, and they went and harvested forest goods and also took their animals to the forest. And in some towns, factory workers refused to go to work. In other places, lawyers, they refused to go to their offices. Students refused to go to schools and colleges that were British schools and colleges. जैसे हमने 1920 से लेकर 1922 के बीच में देखा था how the nationalist movement took its own nature in the distant villages. Now also Gandhiji's call had taken up this fervor amongst people who manifested their discontent with the British in their own ways, and these varied locally. उस time की तरह इस time भी there were mass arrests that were made. In fact, just in the wake of the Salt March to Dandi, nearly 60,000 Indians were arrested, and of course Gandhiji was also amongst them. The progress of Gandhiji's protest at Dandi can be we can monitor it through official communications that were made from the police stations. Although at that time वो hidden reports थे, they were police के spies थे who would follow Gandhiji around, who would attend his rallies, who would make note of the speeches, and they would reproduce it word for word. Where Gandhiji would call for non-cooperation or complete shunning of anything that was to do with British. And all this was noted down as official documents. For example, in the village of Basna, in one such speech that was reported or that was conserved by the police, Gandhiji called on to people to break the barriers of castes till the time the rich or the affluent or the Brahmins came out in service of the untouchables, till the time they fixed the wrongs that they did to the backward castes, till the time they made right those wrongs. Swaraj was not something that was attainable. For Swaraj to happen, the backward classes had to be catered for. The different communities had to come together in brotherhood. He said that Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs and Parsis, they need to come together and be strong together. The police spies also reported that these meetings that were held were attended by a mass of people. So it showed that Gandhiji was getting a lot of popularity. He drew in crowds from different classes, from different castes, from different communities, but also we see that a lot of women participated and a lot of women led from the front during these protests. They also noted many among the crowd, many erstwhile government officers who had quit their jobs with the British government. They were also seen in the crowd. Another source about the progress of the Salt March is also through the American journalist magazine Time. Time is still very famous, but at the time, initially, Time made fun of Gandhiji and his movement. They had this idea that, Gandhiji appears so frail. He is trying to lead a protest march to Dandi. He's planning on walking for 3 odd weeks. He is not going to make it beyond the first week, because he's so emaciated, Gandhiji would sink to the ground in weakness by the second day itself. So they did not really have a lot of faith in Gandhiji or his protests. But within a week, we see Time changing its perspective, changing the tone of their voice, and we see them praising Gandhi and his tactics, his motives. And Time reports that the actions of Gandhi made the British desperately anxious. Time also joined the bandwagon of treating Gandhiji as a saint as well as a statesman. This is something that was common about his aura. You wanted to look up to him and you wanted to respect him. The Salt March towards Dandi was notable for 3 main reasons. First and foremost, it brought Mahatma Gandhi to it gave him the attention of the world. The salt protest was being closely monitored by both the European as well as the American press. So a lot of attention from the world was now, centered towards the action at Dandi, at India. Secondly, the salt protest saw massive participation from women. The socialist activist Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay was crucial in convincing Gandhiji to allow women to also participate in these massive protests, to lead from the front. And she was also known for protesting against the salt as well as the liquor laws. And there were thousands of women, in fact, who courted arrest, so to say, who came out of their homes, who left their household and were ready to go to jail for what they believed in. Thirdly, this march was important because now it gave the British something like a wake-up call, where they finally saw that they would not possess their colony for a very long time. The British Raj in India was not, it would end someday, and maybe that day would come soon. So with that realization, roundtable conferences were held. First was held in November 1930 in London, but this did not had any representation from Indians. So it was an all-white conference, and because of that, it was not really considered as something that would have any effect. January 1931 May, Gandhiji was released from jail, and in the following months, there were many meetings between Gandhiji and the Viceroy at the time to come to some understanding about the future. These meetings culminated in what is known as the Gandhi-Irvine Pact, and what this, and according to this pact, the non-cooperation movement would be called off, but the prisoners would be released and salt manufacture would be allowed for the Indians. Now, this pact was heavily criticized by the radical nationalists because this pact did not really talk about the future of independence for India. It did not touch upon the immediate actions that would be required for India to gain that freedom, and there was no conclusive date set either for discussing these objectives. There was just a promise of the discussion sometime in the future, but nothing was concrete. So a second roundtable conference was held in London. This was in November 1931. Gandhiji represented Congress. Here his claims that his party, the Congress, represented virtually the entire subcontinent or the whole of India, was challenged by three main contenders. Firstly, by the Muslim League, who stood for the demands of the Muslim minorities of India. Secondly, by the princes from the princely states, who said that Congress had no stake over their territories. And third came in the form of a brilliant thinker and lawyer, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who felt that Gandhiji and the Congress did not really highlight the necessities of the backward classes. So the second roundtable conference at London was also inconclusive. So Gandhiji returns back to India and resumes civil disobedience. Now the new viceroy, Lord Wellington, was not very happy with Gandhi and other nationalist leaders. He was deeply unsympathetic. In a private letter to his sister, Wellington wrote, "It's a beautiful world if it wasn't for Gandhi. At the bottom of every move he makes, which he always says is inspired by God, one discovers the political maneuver. I see the American press as saying what a wonderful man he is, but the fact is that we live in the midst of a very unpractical, mythical and superstitious folk who look upon Gandhi as something holy." However, 1935 May, a new Government of India Act was passed, which promised some form of a representative government. 2 साल बाद elections were held and a restrictive franchise के basis पे, मतलब limited powers के basis पे, out of 11 provinces, 8 provinces had a prime minister who hailed from the Congress party, even though they were under the supervision of a British governor. In September 1939, 2 years after the election was held, the Second World War broke out. Now, Gandhiji as well as Jawaharlal Nehru were very critical of Hitler and the Nazis. So they extended the help of Congress to British in times of war if in return the British promised to grant complete independence to India. This offer was refused, and so in protest in October of 1939, Congress resigned from all the positions, all the official positions that they held. Through 1940 and 41, many pocket resistances were held in different parts of the country. Many protests were held as different forms of satyagraha in order to pressurize the rulers to listen to their demands once the war ended. Meanwhile, 1940s May, the Muslim League was functioning at a different level. They passed a resolution that gave a lot of power to the Muslims in Muslim-dominated pockets of India. Now, one could see that the political scene in India was much different than it was a year or two ago. It was no longer a struggle between the British and the Indians. Now it was a three-way struggle between the Congress, the Muslim League and the British. During this time in Britain, in their own government, there was an all-party government, and the Labour ministers from that government were still sympathetic towards Indians and their struggle for freedom. But their Prime Minister, who was very conservative, Winston Churchill, he felt that he was not appointed as the king's first minister to oversee the liquidation of the British Empire in India. Still, in the spring of 1942, Churchill sent over one of his ministers, Sir Stafford Cripps, to hold talks with Gandhiji and the Congress. However, talks did not really benefit anybody, because while Britain was looking for support against the Axis powers, Gandhiji and Nehru, they felt that if the British wanted support from India against the Axis powers, at the very least they had to appoint an Indian as the defense member of their executive council.
द नेक्स्ट टॉपिक इज क्विट इंडिया. क्रिप्स मिशन फेल हो गया था. उसके बाद इन अगस्त 1942 गांधी जी कॉल्ड फॉर क्विट इंडिया मूवमेंट. इट वॉज अ मास मूवमेंट and a lot of people joined in. He was arrested, but a lot of the young leaders or young people who were part of Congress, especially socialist leaders like Jayaprakash Nair, they were there and going against the British through protests. There were strikes all over in several places, especially in the western part, Satara and eastern Medinipur. Independent governments were also formed. Though the British took a lot of time in subduing the rebellion, but this movement was pretty mass. It had a lot of people joining the leaders, Congress leaders. When the congressmen were getting jailed, Jinnah along with his members of the League, they were expanding their ideology and they were expanding Muslim League. उनका influence expand कर रहे थे, especially in Punjab and Sindh region. June 1944 में गांधी जी was released and the first thing he did was to try and bridge the gap that was formed between Muslim League and Congress. 1945 में Labour government had won the elections in Britain, and when they came to power, they had promised India its independence. And in the meanwhile, the Viceroy of India, whose name was Lord Wavell, he tried to get Congress and League to meet each other and discuss in a series of meetings to bridge the gap. Early 1946 में fresh elections हुए गए थे to the provincial legislatures और general category में Congress had won, and जहाँ पे Muslim seats थी वहाँ पे the Muslim League had won. With this we can see polarization taking place. Cabinet missions were sent in 1946 to try and convince both the parties to resolve their issues, but they failed to do so. They also tried to tell them that it can be a federal nation where you will have India will be together, but you will have provincial powers, but nobody agreed. They also tried to convince both the parties that why don't we have a federal system where India would be together and the provinces will have some amount of autonomy. After the talks broke down, Jinnah called for a direct action day. He asked for Pakistan. On 16 August 1946, riots broke out in Bengal region to Bihar, in United Province, in Punjab region. Muslims were sufferers, even Hindu were sufferers. There was total chaos everywhere. February 1947 में Lord Wavell was replaced by Lord Mountbatten, and it was decided that the British would free India and yet it will also be divided. And जो handing over power था वो August 15th का डिसाइड किया गया था. सेलिब्रेशन शुरू हो गई जब टाइम आया. दिल्ली के अंदर जो प्रेसिडेंट थे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन असेंबली के, there was applause, and he venerated Mahatma Gandhi as the father of the nation by saying that he is the father of the nation. And but somewhere it was celebration, but it was also a time where people saw chaos. People left their homes and migrated to a place where they had never been before. They're migrating to alien areas, leaving behind their memories and their house and everything.
So basically, on the one hand, you were celebrating this new gift of nationhood in a way, but on the other hand, you were also mourning the loss of your own homes. The next topic is the last heroic days. As it happened, when India gained its independence on the 15th of August in 1947, Gandhiji was not among the celebrations that were happening at Delhi. He was in Calcutta, but even there he was not part of any of the celebrations. He marked this day by holding a fast for 24 hours. One can imagine what he must be going through, because throughout his career in India, he was preaching for brotherhood and for Hindus and Muslims to come together. But now he was faced with a reality where independence was achieved, but at the cost of brotherhood. Now he saw Hindus and Muslims literally go at each other's throats. That brotherhood was no longer there. D.G. Tendulkar, who wrote the biography of Gandhiji, notes that during the months of September and October, Gandhiji traveled to different refugee camps. He wanted to visit distressed people in trying to give some consolation, in trying to dukh dard baantne के motive से he went to these different camps, and again he was preaching for the Hindus and the Muslims and the Sikhs to leave behind the hurt that they experienced during these months, during the months of partition, and to start afresh, to still come together, because अगर इसके आगे कैसे चलें, है ना, to move forward, he preached for them, for the different communities to come together and be strong together. It was at the initiative of Gandhiji that Nehru and the Congress, they passed a new resolution for the rights of minorities. The party never accepted the two-nation theory that India belonged to, that a part of India belonged to the Hindus and another part belonged to the Muslims. They always felt that India had a secular nature. They did not want the division of the country into parts, but now faced with the reality of the nation divided in two, they still felt that regardless of what Pakistan aims to be, India had to be a sovereign, secular, democratic state. Because India was a land of many religions, many races, and it had to remain so. It was their belief that India would remain a democratic, secular state, and that all citizens would be equal in the eyes of the law, regardless of the religion that they practice and regardless of the religion that was practiced by those in power. And Nehru and Gandhi, they wanted to assure the minorities that their rights would be protected. Scholars have noted that the months after the partition were when Gandhiji's work was at its finest. They call it his finest hour. After Bengal, Gandhiji moved towards the center, where he wanted to meet with the distressed people in the camps. But here he faced resistance when he was reading from the Quran, where the distressed people felt that Gandhi was not speaking equally for the tormented Hindus and Sikhs. But in reality, Tendulkar writes that Gandhiji was equally distressed by the state of of the Muslims in India, as well as the Hindus that were left in Pakistan. So that was, and he wanted to go and visit the Hindus in Pakistan, but because of circumstances, he was not able to. But there was also this feeling that how can he go and talk to the Hindus that were left in Pakistan, where he could not attend to the grievances of the people who were in India, when he could not guarantee the same to the Muslims in Delhi, or console the Hindus who had come from partition. How could he, like, with what face could he go to Pakistan and tell them that everything will be fine? There was an attempt on his life on the 20th of January 1948, but he was safe. He carried on with his life as he would on any regular day. On 26th January of the same year, he addressed a crowd and stated that in the past, this year, this day had been celebrated as the Independence Day, and now that independence has been achieved, he hoped that whatever has happened, or that the worst has been conquered. So whatever is going to happen is only for the better, that Indians will still come together and they will not एक दूसरे में वो बंटवारा टाइप फीलिंग नहीं होगी, that the rich will not dominate over the poor, the powerful will not dominate over the powerless, but that opportunity would be given equally to everybody who deserved it, and that the minority, regardless of how few they were in number, or how few or how less their influence was, they also had a space in the nation for their voice to be heard. And although partition is not something that Gandhiji wanted, at the wake of its happening, Gandhiji still preached that both parties would be understanding of each other, and even though they were separate, they would remember that they were one people and that they would come to each other's help and be one for the world to see. So although there were two nations, there would be hope for an understanding between the two. But other Indians were less forgiving. On the 30th of January, Gandhiji was assassinated by a young Brahmin man from Pune. His name was Nathuram Godse, and he was also an editor of an Hindu extremist newspaper back in Maharashtra, where he felt that Gandhiji was an appeaser of the Muslims, that he did the Hindus wrong. Gandhiji's death led to an outpouring of emotion, not just in India and Pakistan but the world over, from dignitaries like George Orwell and Albert Einstein. Even the magazine Time, which was at one point in time extremely critical of Gandhi and his ways, they compared his martyrdom to that of Abraham Lincoln. Both of them, Time said, were people that stood for a unification of people across races and religion, and both of them were assassinated by bigoted humans for thinking that what they held or what they believed, that this understanding of brotherhood, of peace, was wrong.
The next topic is knowing Gandhi. So there are various instances where we get to know about Mahatma Gandhi. In the writings, where we need to see that it's divided into two: speeches and letters. In speeches, you get to know how they behave in the public, how they give speeches in the public, what how they want the public to perceive them. And letters are more private, and through letters you get to know what they're thinking privately, what are their thoughts. And in letters we get to know their anger, their frustrations, the likes, the dislikes, what makes them angry. It's more private, and which is very different from the speeches that they give, from when very different from when they're giving speeches. Private letters में आप बहुत कि क्या वो सोचते थे, किस बारे में क्या वो उनका ओपिनियन था, आपको ये प्राइवेट लेटर्स के थ्रू पता चलता है. But many times certain letters written to individuals were written on the purpose that someday they will be shown to the public. So the language that they will use in that, they know, they're aware of the fact that someday they'll be published and they'll be up there for the people, for the public to read. His speeches, his letters written by his adversaries and by his people, the colleagues. And many times, because they knew that the letters would get printed, they were very cautious of the way they were writing things. Mahatma Gandhi would always write his own journal called Harijan, and in that he would write about the letters people wrote to him. Nehru also published letters, a series of letters that were written to him, and it was called A Bunch of Old Letters. Autobiographies also give us an account of of a person's past, of how he behaved or how he was, but we have to be very careful when we are reading and interpreting it, because at times it's how they want them to be perceived, how they're looking at a particular incident, what is their thought process on that. It is not very
it's not a critical
yeah it's like sometimes it's how they want people to react. Sometimes they can change the whole setting of what the incident was, of the incident, and it's their opinion. At times they can show themselves as not as bad also, or they were the right ones. So when we are reading autobiographies, and their memories, so memories at times fade, right? So it's not a बिल्कुल आपको हर एक डिटेल याद नहीं रहेगा, आपको सिर्फ उसके चंक्स याद रहेंगे, एंड उसको आप एक थ्रेड में डालते हो और उसके थ्रू आप एक ऑटोबायोग्राफी अपने बारे में लिखते हो. सो उसको पढ़ने के लिए भी आपको बहुत ध्यान देना पड़ता है. एक और है गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल रिकॉर्ड्स जो होते हैं, एंड हाउ ये रिकॉर्ड्स होते हैं जो पुलिस ने लिखे होते हैं, ऑफिशियल्स ने लिखे होते हैं. उस टाइम पे दे सीक्रेटिव, बट नाउ दे ओपन फॉर रीडिंग, ओपन फॉर द पब्लिक. फोर्टनाइटली रिपोर्ट्स प्रिपेयर होती थी होम डिपार्टमेंट की, स्पेशली 20th सेंचुरी के पहले, एंड उसमें आप क्या, वो जो पुलिस है वो क्या परसीव कर रहे थे उस टाइम पे कि एक इंसिडेंट हो गया. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल जब सॉल्ट मार्च हुआ था, तो the police was not agreeing or ready to believe that people were actually coming in masses to join Gandhi. They saw it as an antic or the drama that Gandhi was just forcing people to come and they were unwilling to stand against the British. So it's their way of, it was somewhat denial that they didn't want to agree that, mass movements have taken place, or also putting sedition charges, Many times police have put sedition charges even if they were not anti-nationals, and that we can somewhat see in the present time as well.
Sedition was an instrument of the British colonial government, of the British imperial government, and in a democracy of the people, for the people, by the people of India, it has no space. And the fact that it is being used shows or speaks more in volume of people that are issuing this law against people who are just voicing their dissent.
Yeah, and it's very important to know that people raising their voice against elected government is not sedition. Nobody is going against the country. They're going against representatives who they had elected, and these representatives or the ministers are public servants, and it is their duty to serve the public. Another very important source are the newspapers. So there were many newspapers and reports that were written, and they traced Mahatma Gandhi's movements since the time he had started his mass movements. But while reading those reports, it is very important that they are at times prejudiced, because who's writing it, what is his personal opinion and ideologies, of the world, and it is very important to read it in a very neutral way. And the newspapers that were reporting in London, their perspective is going to be different than by the Indian journalists at that time, and mostly they were written in English and the regional languages, and also the newspapers written in America, the reports that were given by the Americans, they are also going to be different according to their own thought process. And these records are to be, when reading, you have to be very careful, because somewhere they show the anxieties of the officials, because they're not able to do anything at the ground level. When you're reading this chapter, please go through the blue boxes and the yellow boxes specifically, where you have these old letters and Home Department's official records are there. So to understand how they wrote records and how held the records.
I think here we would also want to make a little commentary which is a little separate from your syllabus. There is a quote that I was remembering when we were reading this chapter for ourselves, and it said, "We don't make gods out of men." When reading about Gandhiji, he was the father of the nation. It was because of him that we could progress the way that we did. But Indians as a whole, we have this tendency of worshipping people and worshipping people in power. So that there's nothing wrong with it entirely, but while we are praising somebody, we should also keep in mind that that is not the only aspect of the person. So although this is not there in your CBSE syllabus, maybe if you read further into Gandhi, you can also see some of his shortcomings, that though he was a brilliant leader, and though he wanted a better development or better treatment of women, there were still certain shortcomings there. So where he felt that women would do better in a domestic role. Women were not really supposed to come out and compete in the economic sphere with men, that they have a designated space and they should work in them, and of course they should be treated better, but they should not really venture out of that space. And similarly, there were also his arguments with B.R. Ambedkar on the backward classes, which is also of significant importance. So the motive behind saying this is not to diminish his role in the freedom struggle, in the shaping of India as a nation, but also to remind people and to remind future historians who might be watching us that although leaders lead and they have led us to tremendous improvement, that does not absolve them of their shortcomings. That at the end of the day, they are also humans, and we need to accept both the sides of their story.
And leader worship in a democracy or in any country is wrong, because whatever said and done, they are here to serve the nation and the country. So if they are wrong and they'll have to go. There is no other option. Same, and the problem with especially our country as a whole is that worshipping starts. You don't have to give validation to somebody or make them gods.
Yeah.
And because we are a God-fearing people, we don't love gods. We are not a God-loving
We're fear of
country.
God.
We are
Not
God
fearful of God.
Yeah. So that is why you start giving people, making leader, oh, that he's God, to devta hai. That is a very wrong way. They are they are the ministers. They are elected. We have elected them. They're supposed to do their duty and serve us and the nation. And if they fail to do so, they might as well go and they should be removed. It's as simple.
Although, likening the leader to a god was a very key principle in monarchical forms of ruling in an empire, where a king associated himself with God, because that gave him legitimacy.
Yeah.
And with Gandhiji as well, it was this mysticism that surrounded him that made people want to follow him, want to listen to him. But in a modern democracy, in today's time, worshipping your heroes holds no, there's no basis for hero worship anywhere but in politics in particular.
I hope that you have liked today's episode. Please like, share and subscribe and keep watching Tariq.